Hello dear student, good morning. Welcome back to the next part of this chapter, Indigo. So far we have covered that how Gandhiji reached Champaran when he got to know through Rajkumar Shukla that there was an immense exploitation going on in Champaran against the poor peasants, and it was being done by the sharecroppers who were of course in power. So because of the same, they were misusing their power, and in fact this exploitation started since in fact the synthetic indigo was developed in Germany. Before that, in fact, there was a contract. According to that contract, Indian peasants were supposed to grow 15% of their land with indigo, and that indigo was to be surrendered to British landlord. But when British landlord got to know that indigo was in fact developed by Germany, in fact synthetic indigo, they cancelled this in fact agreement and pressurized Indian farmer to give 15% cash now. So this was of course an unlawful condition which was imposed on Indian peasant. So Rajkumar Shukla approached Gandhiji asking him to help in this respect. Now let's see from here. So see, the government was baffled. Government was confused. Why government was confused? You must have remembered when Gandhiji was called in court the next day. There were thousands of people who accumulated there to impart their support. And finding so many people over there, the authority got confused how to deal with such critical situation. So the prosecutor, it means the lawyer of government side, requested the judge to postpone the trial the next date. Apparently, clearly, the authorities wished to consult their superior. They wanted to discuss with their seniors how to deal with the situation. Gandhi protested against the delay. Gandhiji protested against the delay. He said, no next date. Let's decide everything right now. He read a statement pleading guilty, and see, he in fact pleading himself, confessing himself as guilty. He was involved, he told the court, in a couple of duties. Two duties were there and conflict of duties. There was a clash, of duties. Two opposite duties were there. He had to take. On the one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. Number one duty was there to be a law-abiding person, not to be a lawbreaker. And how in fact it was there? It was by following the order in which Gandhiji had been asked to quit Champaran immediately. So number one was this duty to be a law-abiding citizen. On the other hand, to give the humanitarian and national service. And second service was there toward humanity and his nation. How it was? By staying there, by investigating the harassment against Indian peasant. Or like in this way he was supposed to serve humanity as well as nation. So this was the another duty. For a year he had come. He disregarded the other two leaves. So this was the reason he disregarded. The first one to leave, the first duty to be a law-abiding citizen was asking him to leave Champaran. He disobeyed that duty for the sake of humanity and nationality. Not for want of respect. It was not because of lack of respect for lawful authority. He did have respect for lawful authorities, but in obedience to the higher law of our being, to follow higher law of our existence. And what is our higher law of our existence? To impart our services toward humanity and nationality. So on account of second duty, he avoided first one. The voice of conscience. He heard the voice of his inner soul. Of course, inner soul asked him to stay there, to linger there, and this was the reason he decided not to leave Champaran. He asked the penalty due. So he said, I am guilty. Give me punishment. Whatever punishment, is due for this crime, you please give, I will accept. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after a 2-hour wrestle. See, everyone was so baffled. I would say how ironical situation was there and how humorous situation was there. A criminal is there, a person is there. that person is saying, I am a criminal, I have done a mistake, you give me punishment for the same. But lawyer is saying, prosecutor is saying, no, let's set the next date. Alright, and magistrate, even he is confused. He in fact does not have courage to give any decision against Mahatma Gandhi. Why? Because he knows that there is a mass support of Gandhiji standing out of the court, and any decision against him would provoke that mass support, and they would vandalize, they would destroy the court, they would beat everyone. So this was the reason even magistrate was confused what to do. And see the cunningness, the craftiness of Gandhiji, how cleverly he manipulated the situation in his favor. He had realized the mass support of outside. So this was the reason, he tried to use this movement to the fullest. Had he decided to, to battle against this case, he would not have got so much power. But now there was a power behind him, and this was the reason he in fact he considered himself as a guilty and asked for punishment, but magistrate said, I would give punishment after 2 hours. Fine, and asked Gandhiji to furnish bail for those 120 minutes, and he said, okay, you are on your liberty for these 2 hours, furnish bail. For being on bail, there is some legal process to be done, affidavit is to be given. So the judge asked Gandhiji to fulfill all the all these formalities, but see the obstinacy of Gandhiji. What he fought like true champion. Gandhiji refused. He said, no, I would not submit any bail, and the judge released him without bail. Judge said, भैया तू जा यहाँ से, दिमाग ना खा मेरा. Alright, so I would say, see the victory of Gandhiji. It must have happened the very first time in Indian history when someone denied to submit his bail, but judge released him without even that. So it was, of course, the championship of Gandhiji. He was very understanding, very far-sighted. He had already measured the support which was there in front of him out of court, and how he used that in his favor. When the court reconvened, gathered again, the judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days, and meanwhile during this he allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. So student, how funny this thing is. A criminal is saying, I am criminal, give me punishment, but judge says, I will not give you punishment for many days, you go from here, and you go even without submitting bail amount. So let's see forward further. So see, Rajendra Prasad, Braj Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazhar al-Haq and several other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar. Fine, they came to meet Gandhiji. They conferred with Gandhi. They discussed with Gandhi what would they do if he was sentenced to prison. They asked what would be their role if Gandhiji was to be given punishment for his guilt, for his mistake. What was his mistake? Not to follow law. Gandhi asked why they were asking the same. The senior lawyer replied they had come to advise and help him. If he went to jail, there would be nobody to advise, and they would go home. So they said, their being there would be completely useless, because they had come to assist him, and once he's in there, there is no cause of staying there. So they would go back to their respective houses. What about the injustice to the sharecroppers? Gandhi demanded. He said, okay, but what about this injustice? Unlawful activities against Indian peasants? What about that? The lawyers withdrew to consult. For a while, they stopped to advise Gandhiji. Rajendra Prasad has recorded the upshot, means the result, the consequence of their consultation. They consulted among themselves. And what was the upshot of consultation? They thought among themselves that Gandhiji was totally a stranger, and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasant. In fact, there wasn't any connection of Gandhiji with nomadic Indian peasants. he was outsider. On the other hand, these lawyers who were localized, and of course, they were the same people who were fighting their cases in court, charging heavy fees from them. So when Gandhiji, despite being outsider, was ready to go to prison, they must have had some sort of moral responsibility, ethical responsibility. So that's what they had thought among themselves. So see, and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasant. If they, on the other hand, being not only resident of the adjoining district, but also those who claim to have served these peasants, and these lawyers were the same people who in fact were claiming to have been serving these people, all right, by fighting their cases in courts, should go home, it would be shameful desertion. Desertion means negligence of duties. So it would be shameful negligence of duty. They accordingly went back to Gandhi and told him they were ready to follow him into jail. They said that they would also go for court arrest. Student, what is called court arrest? Whenever there are people who in fact surrender themselves to police to protest any act or policy or law of government without doing any crime, that is called court arrest. All right, you must have seen people do it quite oftenly even now. To protest any government policy, they surrender themselves to police. That's what is called court arrest. So these lawyers in fact told this thing to Gandhiji, that they would also go for court arrest if Gandhiji is sentenced. Fine. And when Gandhiji heard it, see his statement, very meaningful statement. What Gandhiji said, the battle of Champaran is won. He said, now this battle is won. Now what you have decided to do, this battle is won. How this battle is won? Because it shows our union, our togetherness, and by being together, we can of course win this battle. He exclaimed, he shouted. Then he took a piece of paper and divided the group into pairs and put down the order in which each pair was to court arrest. And then he divided several lawyers into different groups, telling them that in this particular order they would go for court arrest. Several days later, Gandhi received a written communication, a letter from the magistrate informing him that the lieutenant governor of the province, lieutenant governor of the area, had ordered the case to be dropped. So that case was ordered to be dropped by the lieutenant governor of that area. So how humorous thing is there? First time it must have happened in the history of law that a criminal confessed that he was a criminal. All right, first of all, judge did not give order, and second thing, the case was dropped. So this was victory of intelligence, of unity. All right, and Gandhiji well realized this, and this was the reason, despite his confession, the case was dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed, and the very first time civil disobedience, when civil disobeyed the rule, but still this was won. So very first time in modern India it had happened. Gandhiji and the lawyers now proceeded to conduct a far-flung inquiry. Far-flung means detailed inquiry into the grievances, into the distress, hardship, difficulties of the farmer. Depositions were about 10,000 peasants were written down. So 10,000 peasants told about their misery. You can understand, the extended form of this exploitation, that 10,000 peasants told that how they were being exploited by British landlords. And notes made on other evidence, and whatever evidence were found, notes were made on the same. Documents were collected. The whole area throbbed beat with the activity of investigators and vehement and energetic protest of landlords. Landlords were protesting this investigation of Mahatma Gandhi. It was obvious. They knew they were wrong, and they knew investigation would unbox their reality. All right. So this was the reason. They were in fact protesting this investigation where all the evidence, documents were being collected against them. In June, Gandhi was called to Sir Edward Gate, who he was? The lieutenant governor. He was lieutenant governor. Before he went, he met leading associate, all those people who were in association with him, who were supporting him, and again laid detailed plan for civil disobedience if he should not return. Once again the same strategy. If he does not return, how they would go for court arrest. Gandhi had 4 protracted interviews with the lieutenant governor. Gandhiji had 4 detailed interviews with lieutenant governor, who as a result appointed an official commission of inquiry into the Indigo sharecropper situation. Alright, an inquiry committee was made having 3 parties. Number 1 party, some neutral officials. Number 2 party was their landlords, all those landlords, their representative, and number 3rd party was their Gandhiji, the only representative of sharecroppers, of Indian peasant. So these 3 parties were there, which were in fact turned into a committee to investigate this matter thoroughly. Alright, the commission consisted of landlord, government official, and Gandhi as the sole only representative of the peasant. Gandhi remained in Champaran for an initial uninterrupted period of 7 months, and then again for several shorter visits. See student, Gandhi's devotion toward eradicating the problem. He had been called there by Rajkumar Shukla. Even Rajkumar Shukla must not have fancied ever that this call would make Gandhiji stay there for 7 uninterrupted months. He must have thought that Gandhi would stay there hardly for 1 week, 10 days, after that he would go. But once he reached there, he stayed there for 7 months constantly, and what's written, even he made many shorter visits afterward. So this shows his devotion toward eradicating any problem. So see, then again for several shorter visits, the visit undertaken, which was shouldered casually, carelessly, on the entreaty, means request, of an unlettered, illiterate peasant, in the expectation that it would last a few days. Rajkumar Shukla must have thought it would remain there for a few days, occupied almost a year of Gandhi's life. So Gandhi spent almost 1 year of his life for the same. The official inquiry assembled a crushing mountain of evidence against the big planters. So many, evidences which were crushed were collected against big planter. And when they saw this, they agreed in principle to make refund to the peasant. They agreed that they would repay the payment they had extorted from peasant, because they knew their unlawful activities, illicit activities were revealed. Now they were not in the position to cover them. So that is why they had to oblige to give payment. But now the question was, but how much must we pay? They asked Gandhiji. Alright, they thought he would demand repayment. He would ask to repay the whole amount in full of the money which they had illegally and deceitfully extorted from the sharecroppers. Student, let's do one thing. Let's keep the remaining chapter for next video, because still we have plenty part to cover. Detailed part is there, so that is why that would be covered in next video. And what in fact I must say to you in the end, that it's very pious occasion today when I have made this video. Yes, it's Eid, so happy Eid to all of you. Have lovely tasty sevai at your home. Alright, eat on my behalf as well, and stay at your home. Our area is becoming sensitive on account of the spread of corona. So my warm wishes to you. May you be on the pinnacle of success. Be healthy, wealthy, prosperous, intelligent, sagacious. And thank you so much for watching this video. You are great, and so am I.